Okay, so UFC 273 was this past weekend with Volkanovski taking on the Korean Zombie. Pretty solid card overall, probably the best pay-per-view card I would say thus far this year. On paper, it was the best card, and I think it did. I would say it delivered on that. I still think UFC London thus far was the best card this year, but a very solid card though overall, from the early prelims to the main card. In the early prelims, there was nothing too much to shout about. Again, a few fights getting cancelled, so again, wasn't really much to really go off. But in the prelims, you had Ian Gary beating Darren Winks in the featured prelim. It was a pretty dull fight, to be honest. Ian Gary did alright, picked him off at range. Darren Weeks just wasn't able to close the distance, and when he was doing alright, but he just didn't do that enough. And I think Ian Gary, again, wasn't great Ian Gary, but won it pretty clearly and pretty comfortably. Wasn't too much to go off. You had Aspinallad beating Rook Alpine and beating Aspinallad. Again, wasn't great, but she got the decision, and you got Mickey Gall getting KO'd cold by Mike Malott. I don't know why Mickey Gall decided to think he was a striker and tried to swing with him, but shows, in MMA, you always have to, I always say, fight the smart fight, and don't try and almost show that you're some crazy warrior, because if that happens, stuff like that would happen. And it was a bad knockout for Mickey Gall. But again, prelims, nothing too much to shout about. A decent enough opening, but nothing too much to scream about. Like I said, I think the Ian Gary fight was the one that I was sort of looking at, and didn't really show me much. But again, he's only young in his career, and he'll get better. So, but I maintain he needs to drop this whole Conor McGregor thing. I know he's an icon in the sport, Conor, but you need to be your own fighter. So, but decent enough. When we got into the main card, they were Mackenzie Dern beating Tisha Torres. Decent win from Mackenzie Dern. She showed that, again, she's a player at women's strawweight with her ground game especially. She's dangerous for anybody. And Tisha Torres' defense showed that she's tough. She survived that Kimura in the second round, and really showed, again, that she's another one. This women's strawweight division is quite thin, so I could definitely see Mackenzie Dern showing getting a title shot not that long. And for Tisha Torres, she's still in the picture. Again, with depends on these divisions. If they're quite thin, it's very rare that you'll be cut or that you'll be out of the picture completely. So, decent fight though. Mackenzie Dern showing that again, on the ground, problem for anybody. And good win for her. Decision. Again, I thought maybe she might have submitted in a second, but again, Tisha Torres showed that she's tough and showed that she has that grit. And decent fight, but nothing too much to go crazy about. But the main three fights that I previewed, and the main three fights that people were looking forward to, was the main event, co-main event, and the welterweight clash. So, and then the ones that I also obviously broke down. So, starting off with the third fight from the main event, the welterweight clash between Gilbert Burns and Khamzat Chimaev. Chimaev obviously got the decision. I personally felt it was close, but I did give Khamzat that second, the third round even. Did give him the second. And like I said, there's two things I need to see tested in this fight. I need to see how Khamzat's chin is and how his cardio is. And both those things got tested in this fight. I had three sort of takeaways from this fight, though, what I will say. First is that these two are warriors. It was a brilliant fight. Both these guys going back and forth, knocking each other down, swinging haymakers. It was brilliant watching. If they ever fight again, it needs to be a 5-rounder, because it was an amazing fight to watch. And they both showed that, there's some fighters, when they're in wars, they fold. Neither of these two folded. They didn't quit. They stuck in there and showed that they belong at this level. The second takeaway I had from it was that people need to put more respect on Gilbert Burns. Everybody was saying he's going to get ran through by Chimaev, that Burns is too small, he's a lightweight, he's chinny, this and that. Listen, I know he lost to Kamaru Usman. He got picked apart and looked quite bad in that fight. towards the end, but he also hurt Kamaru Usman, something that not many people have done. Actually, I don't think anybody, even Colby didn't really hurt him that badly, so as if at all, to be honest. So people need to, I think, give more respect to Gilbert Burns. He is a nightmare for anybody, and I think he gives anybody, if it's Colby, if it's Leon Edwards, anybody, a hell of a fight, and probably beats a lot of them because his ground game. Chimaev didn't want to go to the ground with him. That shows you his jiu-jitsu is no joke, and on the feet he's powerful. And I think that, like I said, people need to put a lot of respect on him. He is very, very good, and I think he probably is the best placed guy to beat Usman. I don't think he beats him personally, but I do think he's probably the best placed one to do it because of how dangerous he is and how well-rounded he is. So a real Burns, I think, nobody really lost in this fight. They both got respect from it, and some people think it was a robbery that Burns won. I don't think it was. I think in a close fight like this, there is no robberies. It's just about whichever you think. I think Chimaev in the third round turned up and showed more than Burns, and I think that's why I think he probably is the correct decision to give it to him. I did predict Chimaev to get the third round TKO, and he did almost get it, but you know, it's one of them. You needed the test for Chimaev to see what it was about, and that was my third takeaway from this. And my third takeaway sort of split in two, because one, I think Chimaev has shown that he is for real, that he is a real player in this welterweight division and in the UFC in general. Number 11, I think he's ranked, and he beat the number 2 guy. Doesn't happen. He's shown that he really is for real and a real threat in this division. And I think he's shown that fight. He took Burns down the first round, did good, knocked him down as well in that round. And in the second, he still showed that he's tough and he can grit it out. He got hurt and he still didn't back down and kept coming forward. And in the third round, again, showed that, like I said, the grit, that thing inside you where you don't quit. He kept coming forward and kept trying to land a damaging shot on Burns. And his striking's pretty good. It's not unbelievable, but it's solid enough where it'll give a lot of people problems. And I think he does have power that way. Not unbelievable power. I mean, look at this division. Burns has that sort of, if he catches you flush, he will hurt you type power, but nothing. I think he probably has, I don't know, he is more powerful, I would say, but then maybe someone like Usman, but he just, a little bit like Woodley, he has that sort of one-punch power, but not, because I think his technique isn't very clean, so that's why maybe it looks a bit messy, but Burns could put you to sleep. Colby doesn't really have that much power in his hands, to be honest. He's just hits you with a lot of volume, and Usman's very accurate, and if he catches you straight with a lot of his shots, he has that one KO power, and he's always had it. I think he just needed a bit more smoothing out with Trevor Whitman, and that's why you see him knocking people out these days. And Chimaev does have that natural power. He's very big, but, and I will say this, everyone was talking about how he will run through Kamaru Usman, run through Adesanya, run through everybody in this whole division, and at middleweight, and go up to light heavyweight and beat people. Everybody needs to relax with Khamzat Chimaev. Now, he's very, very good, and he showed it. But that aura of invincibility that he had is still there, but it kind of diminished a little bit because he got hurt in this fight. He got rocked. He was tiring. His cardio did not look that good at all, to be honest. And that's the one thing I said. His chin and cardio really get tested. His chin's pretty solid. He took some decent shots from Burns and kept coming forward. Even that right hand that hurt me, that would have put a lot of people out, but he ate it, so he showed that he has the chin. The cardio, though, that was my biggest wonder or question with him, because you got to remember, this man is a beast, and he almost retired because of how bad he had COVID, and he was trying to train through it and trying to be this warrior, but you know, that comes at a price. I said the same thing a long time ago about Tony Ferguson. He tried to make weight twice, and he fought Justin Gaethje. What do you think is going to happen? There's a fine line between bravery and stupidity, and I feel like with Chimaev, I think him doing that, trying to train through COVID, trying to do that, it wasn't the smartest thing, because I know he's a warrior and he wants to do it, but I think they said he has like scarring or bruising on his lungs. That is not going to be good for your cardio, and the difference that I saw here, when Usman fought Covington, those two were fighting at a high pace. Same what Burns and Chimaev were. But the one thing that set those two apart is they were able to keep that pace for 5 rounds and never slow down. The only time Colby slowed down is when Usman targeted his body in the third round in the first fight. In the second fight, Colby started off slower, but then after that, the fight picked up and it was as good as the first. Chimaev slowed down a lot in that second round. He got dropped. And people thought of Chimaev to be like this Khabib, Islam Makhachev type fighter, being dominant, beating everybody. Khabib never been cut in the UFC, never been dropped, never been hurt, really. Chimaev, Makhachev got knocked out once, but other than that, hasn't really been rocked, so... And he's shown how dominant he has been since then. Chimaev kind of shown, I think, a little bit of his inexperience here. Trying to go to war with Gutbins, thinking that he would smash Usman Adesanya one night, and I like the confidence, but you've got to be realistic. This is literally was his 11th fight in MMA. You don't beat Usman, Adesanya, all these guys in your 11th fight, or you don't run through them at least anyway. And yeah, watching that fight, if he fought Usman next, I don't think he beats him. I think Kamaru Usman will beat Chimaev. And people said that maybe he wins, but people feel like he would run through these guys. He won't run through any of these guys, in my opinion. Not now, anyway. Maybe give it a year or so. Maybe it might be different. And even Colby, I thought Chimaev would actually really beat Colby, but now, after seeing that cardio and the way Colby puts pressure, a pace on people, he may beat him as well. It's hard to really say, but it definitely makes it more interesting. But I think Chimaev's for real, and he's a truth, but that aura of invincibility is going, or has gone a little bit, I think. And I think he almost built himself up to try and finish, unstop all these guys that I think now, it's probably a good thing that he had this fight, because it humbles him a bit. And it shows him what he can work on. Sometimes you see with some fights when Ngannou beat everybody on the way to find Stipe for the first time. He thought he could run for everybody, beat for everybody, knock one out. He fought Stipe and he got embarrassed and just beat thoroughly. And that's probably the best thing for him, because since then, take out the Derek Lewis fight because he lost that as well. Knocked out Curtis Blaze, Rosenstrike, Dos Santos, Velasquez, and obviously fought Stipe in the rematch and beat him. And now we saw against Sorogan, he's now developed his wrestling. So these are the adjustments I think you need to make as fighters. Nobody comes into the UFC straight away and beats everyone and dominates and beats the champion. There's still a level he needs to go, and him and Colby is a 50-50 fight because he has the power, but if he tires, Colby will beat him, to be honest. So interesting how it goes, but good win for him. I'd like to see him and Colby next. I would also like to see... I personally don't think that Burns will... I don't think that Leon Edwards will beat Usman, so I'd like to see Gilbert Burns versus Leon Edwards if Edwards doesn't beat Usman. But if not, I don't know, maybe a Wonder Boy, maybe Masvidal. I don't know, there's not really many people who are kind of alone in that sort of... Again, him and Luque train together, so that won't happen. It's hard to say. But maybe he fights Bilal Muhammad, someone like that. I know he's fighting Luque, but maybe after that's all done, because I think Luque will beat him. But yeah, good though. Great fight. Fight of the night easily. It was a brilliant fight. And yeah, credit to Chimaev and Burns. Brilliant fight.